Pleased to be joined now by senior producer from NFL Films and also co-host of ESPN's NFL Matchup Show. It is Greg Cosell joining us on the line as we've made our way past another week of the preseason. Only one to go, Greg. We're almost there.
Almost, yeah. And I imagine not a lot of the main guys will play in the last one. You know how that goes. But I hope you guys are having a better day than Broderick Jones did the other night.
Woo!
Yeah. Yes, we are.
We are.
Good.
Yes. I don't know that
good.
you could have a worse day than that, because I was stupefied that a guy that is a first-round caliber player, certainly has some elite physical traits, fell victim to Greg Rousseau. But at the same time, I'm kind of excited about Greg Rousseau, Greg.
I know. I mean, God, that looked really good with Rousseau. I mean, it was a really good performance. The speed to power. I mean, it was a really good performance. I mean, You want him to become that guy. I think we talked about that. It might have been last week, Brownie, and I know Steve wasn't on last week when I spoke with you. But we talked about the fact that you want someone on that defensive line to really become a somewhat dominant individual pass rusher. And Rousseau could well become that guy, but he showed strong speed to power. I mean, that second sack when he just literally moved Jones like Jones weighed 150 pounds.
Yeah, it was the old kind of hump move that Reggie White used to use, when he came up, got the inside arm, and just shot-putted Jones's weight off the line of scrimmage and then cut underneath him for the sack. I mean, it was quintessential power. And yeah, we haven't seen that from Greg too much. He's always been kind of one of those slippery, long guys that would get to the quarterback that way.
Yeah, that was really a positive, because Jones is going to be a starting player in this league, so it wasn't as if he was doing it against a backup player. So that was really good to see. The other player, I thought, I mean, we'll get to a number of guys here, but as long as we're talking about edge players and pass rushers, I thought the rookie Solomon showed well. I thought he showed up in the run game. There were a couple of plays where he showed point of attack strength and fourths. And as a pass rusher, again, he beat Jones as well. He challenged him on the high side, then worked underneath the close to the quarterback. I think it turned out to be an incompletion, if memory serves me correctly. It wasn't a sack, but Solomon showed up on tape.
I've been pumping Solomon's tires up for 2 months now.
Steve is his campaign manager.
And because of his burst off the edge. The only to me, Greg, the only reason he didn't get drafted higher than the 5th round was because he's short. He's got all the other measurables: his explosion, his weight, his strength, everything, except he's maybe 3 inches too short.
Yeah, but I think as I recall, he has long arms, and I think the other factor was he wasn't a Power 5 player. So I think that that right or wrong, Steve, as you know, sometimes that drops a player around or two simply for that reason.
Right. Yeah.
Well, if he was 3 inches taller, he would be a Power 5 player, I'm pretty sure, right? I mean, he would have every memeasurable then.
Oh, for sure.
I mean,
because we talked about him last week, Brownie, as you recall.
Yeah.
And I really liked him coming out of college. I liked him a lot. But you're right, Steve. It's the length, the body length, not the arm length, because he has long arms, but the body length was not what you want.
Right. Unfortunately, he had to leave the game late with a calf injury. We're hoping that's not serious and impacts his availability for the start of the regular season. Dorian Williams has a big job in front of him now, Greg, with Matt Milano out indefinitely, presumably at least till December after needing to undergo bicep surgery. I think we all agree that Dorian Williams is a see-ball, get-ball player and is dynamic going forward. The test will be, can he handle going in reverse and understand coverage concepts and what's coming at him in the passing game. I don't know how much evidence of that we got on Saturday, but maybe just tell us your thoughts.
Yeah. And you're right about him. He always shows flashes of that kind of scrape and flow quickness and burst to make plays in the run game. That's the way he plays. But at times, too, the other potential issue, and teams will attack him this way, is he can be a beat slow at times to key and diagnose. Sometimes he'll take a false step. And no matter how good you are, how quick you are, if you take a false step, this is the NFL. It doesn't work out the way you want it to work out. So, the main thing for him is just to be able to process it the right way, because there's no question that the kid is athletic. And when you do see him make those scrape and flow plays, he looks really good doing it.
So we saw him flash at the end of last year when he was kind of forced into action, and it was obvious that at that time the coaching staff really didn't trust him because they bring A.J. Klein back off the couch and put him in and plug him in ahead of him. But this year, it does seem, by the fact that he's getting these reps and what he's been through and proven, they are starting to trust him a little more. Maybe it's out of necessity, but it does seem like they put more on his plate, and he's risen to the occasion.
Yeah, I mean, I think at this point you have to give him a shot because obviously with Milano out, I mean, we can talk about Joe Andreessen as well, who played, I think, a significant number of snaps in that game. But Williams certainly is an athletic player. He's long, he's fluid. There's some explosiveness and suddenness to the way in which he moves. Now it becomes his ability to process, his ability to understand route concepts in zone coverage and understand what he should be looking at. You hear a lot, Steve, you know this, you hear a lot about defensive backs and eye discipline, but that's also true for underneath coverage defenders in zone. They have to understand splits. They have to understand what kind of route concepts come from different splits. They can't just drop back and stare at the quarterback without any understanding of what kind of routes might be run from certain formation looks. And that can take time, especially, I'm sure, in college. As Brownie said, and he's 100% right, he's such a good athlete and a playmaker type in college that it's see ball, get ball. It can't just be that in the NFL.
So you mentioned it really quick, and we've been taking calls about it, and everybody's a little excited about a local guy, Joe Andreessen. You watched him play. He got into the game, and really because of the injuries, it was him all night. He took every rep. What'd you think of Joe Andreessen? What are his pluses and minuses?
Well, I hope you guys will forgive me that I didn't watch him when he was at Bryant College, if that's okay.
That's all right. We'll let that go.
Well, okay. I know, Steve, because you watch all this stuff. I want to make sure it was okay that I missed him there. I actually enjoyed watching him. I mean, I really liked the way he plays. I thought, now here's an example of a guy that did show excellent key and diagnose in the run game. And what that results in is a quick trigger downhill. And I thought there were some plays where he showed some pop and short stroke power in his hands on contact with offensive linemen. I mean, he did not get shoved back. And I thought there were times, because he was so quick with his trigger, that he beat offensive linemen to the spot and was able to hit and shoot gaps and make plays. Again, we don't want to sit here and start acting like he's Zach Thomas, but I mean, if you're just looking at that tape and you didn't know anything about him, you'd say it was a really good performance. And he did show enough play speed and range. He's probably not a 4.4 guy, but he did show some plays where he was able to get outside and make some plays outside the numbers. He did. I don't want to say he ran down Fields, but he tackled Fields outside the numbers on one play.
Right.
It was a good performance overall.
Yeah, and you mentioned his knockback ability, at the line of scrimmage. I thought.
I mean, look at the play we're looking at right now. He beat the block with the trigger. Because he sees it. That is such a big deal. It's why some guys at linebacker don't have to be great athletes. It's funny we're talking about him after Dorian Williams. That's the difference. If Dorian Williams had this kid's key and diagnose and trigger, Williams would be an all-pro type player.
Yeah.
Right.
Ray Davis, really nice job running the football. Admittedly, the offensive line played a much better game as well in terms of opening holes, but he sees it and he hits it. I mean, there isn't much hesitation there, and he's just built so low to the ground that tacklers just can't seem to get a good rap on him.
I loved Ray Davis coming out. I guess he was a 4th-round pick. Obviously, he's not a quote-unquote burner, and he's 5'8", a little over 5'8", but he's got a very low center of gravity. He's got a really strong lower half. He's got great patience, great vision. He's short area explosive. He's got leg drive. He's got contact balance. He finishes. I just think when I watched him at Kentucky, I thought he had a very refined sense of pace and tempo and vision. I just thought he was a really good back. And you saw, even though he bounced a few out, he's primarily an inside runner, and he's sort of an interesting complement to Cook because they're different kinds of runners. Not that we didn't see Cook run inside runs a year ago. Obviously, when you carry over 200 times, there's going to be a large number of inside runs. But Davis is probably better suited for those kinds of runs, given his body type, his low center of gravity, gives him kind of a natural power. And when I say power, not necessarily to run through people, but the contact balance to kind of finish forward and always seemingly to get 2 or 3 extra yards. And I thought this was a great run. This was his long run, the 19-yarder. You could see kind of the little shiftiness and elusiveness to him. Very compact.
And there was a guy on this roster last year who wore the same number, but his season ended prematurely due to injury, and then he ultimately retired. I kind of see Ray Davis in the Damian Harris role for this run game this year. How would you compare those two players?
Oh, interesting. Harris retired, huh? I didn't realize that.
Yeah, he announced his retirement in the offseason, I think.
Yeah, well, he unfortunately he was just hurt so much. Maybe his body couldn't do it anymore. I would say that's a great question. They're probably somewhat similar. I would say that Harris might be a little more long speed explosive. Not that Harris was a burner, but but again, in the NFL, how many 50-yard touchdown runs do you see? You don't see that many of those. Davis is a grinder, a sustainer. He's got a little juice to him. You saw the shiftiness in a small space. What he does really well, and I've had this conversation with Fred Taylor, who has really taught me a lot about running the football, and he was great. One thing Davis does really well is he works effectively in confined space. And to be a really good back in this league, you've got to be able to do that. It's not college football where you face a lot of light boxes and everything seems so spread out. You've got to be able to work in confined space, and Davis has a natural feel for that.
Let's talk a little bit about the other side of the football. The safety position is a little bit in flux. We've got Mike Edwards for the Bills injured. We've got Cole Bishop, who's injured. We've got Damar Hamlin didn't play because he's become more valuable because he's the last guy standing. Taylor Rapp did play the other night, and also we saw Daquan Hardy. Of course, he was not playing safety, but give us your assessment of the Bills.
Corner, yeah,
give us your assessment of the Bills' secondary and some of the highlights and lowlights.
Yeah, it's a tough deal for this reason that in an ideal world, Rapp will be a starter in an ideal world, but who plays next to him is not really playing now. If all goes, I think, the way the Bills want it to go. Now, you guys are there. I'm not. Have Edwards and Bishop not even practiced yet?
Not yet.
They're ramping up slowly. They're taking some walkthrough reps. They've obviously been in meetings and all of that, so mentally they should be prepared. But no full reps at all.
So, I mean, you guys being there know Sean better than I as far as this kind of thing. But is it likely, given that situation, that neither one would be a starter week 1?
Maybe not neither one. I think it depends on where they're at mentally. We would never know. They may do that because they did it last year with the linebacker spot. And Terrell Bernard, no reps during the regular season at all. And day one, or no preseason reps at all. And day one of the regular season, he's in there. So they may do that with the safety position as well. But I don't think – Mike Edwards and Cole Bishop aren't going anywhere. I think they're going to be on the roster.
Oh, for sure. And Mike Edwards has played in the league for a number of years, and I thought that was a good signing because he's a quality safety, and I really loved Cole Bishop coming out of Utah. I mean, to me, he's a starting safety in this league. Now, again, that doesn't mean I thought he'd be a starter day one. You never know that until the guy gets in the league. But if either one's ready to go week 1, Steve, I don't think their safety position is weak. I mean – Rapp's been in the league a bit, and I think most people would probably say that he's not maybe the best starting safety in the league. He's kind of been more of a sub package player, but it's not as if he's 30 or 32 years old. So maybe he's ready to take that mantle and be a starter. But they're really counting on Edwards and Bishop because Hamlin, we kind of know what he is. I know he's got experience in their scheme, but I think we know what he is. And this past week they played Lewis, who's been around as well. So at least they're playing guys that aren't new to their system. So you might what it does, and you guys know this. What it does if you don't feel super comfortable at a position on defense, is it limits your options, what you call in specific situations, because you just don't want a guy making a mistake or even physically getting beat because you don't feel he's capable of doing what you're asking him to do, and that limits what you call.
Daquan Hardy, Greg, looked a little better in the return game. The wind wasn't blowing like crazy like it was here against Chicago 2 weeks ago. Had a couple of long returns in the punt game, but then played a ton on defense. He played just as much as Andreessen did.
He played outside.
And he had two pass breakups, almost had an interception. So just your assessment of him, because I think coming in the door, a lot of us looked at his stature and said, oh, he'll be a slot guy. And he's lined up outside, and he hasn't looked bad. He's made plays.
No, you're right, and I thought he'd be a slot guy too. I guess the guy I'm still wondering about, and he obviously played in this game, but he didn't play, I think, till maybe late second quarter, even second half, is Elam. I mean, what are you guys hearing about him through practice? Because, again, you're dealing with a guy that's got a lot of traits.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think he's going to unseat Benford or Rasul Douglas. So I would put him at third corner right now on the outside. And then Jamarcus Ingram, the former undrafted out of Buffalo, is nipping at his heels. He's had a very good camp.
And he played in the slot in this game.
Yeah, and I think that was due in part to the fact that Taron Johnson's out of the game already, and Cam Lewis was playing safety, and Lewis also doubles as Taron Johnson's backup in the nickel. So Ingram was the next guy in. But again, that brings us back to Hardy, because you think about body type, and Ingram does line up outside, but I think you would almost anticipate it would be Hardy moving into the middle. But that's a 6'2" slot, and then they got a 5'9" guy on the outside. But I got to give it to Hardy; he's tough out there.
Well, the other thing too is you wonder with Hardy if they wanted to get him some experience out there, because think about some of the guys that they're going to have to face in their division. I mean, neither Hill nor Waddle is tall. Garrett Wilson, I think, is 5'10". I mean, if they feel that he can play outside, Brownie, and really, truly play outside, there might be some matchups where they feel that he's worth putting out there.
Yeah, and I was kind of convinced with the way he played last night. I mean, or on Saturday night. I mean, he almost had an interception. He just mistimed his jump ever so slightly. Has 2 pass breakups. I mean, he's tackled pretty well in the practice setting. And, I don't think he's embarrassed himself in either of the preseason games. I mean, he doesn't look like he doesn't. Right. He looks like he belongs.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, you know how teams think about their division and about how they have to win their division. That's first and foremost. So, when you're playing against 5'9" or 5'10", if you're 5'9" or 5'10", there's no height disadvantage there.
Yeah, that's a good point. Well, before we let you go, I want to ask you about kind of a little bit, give us an umbrella look at the league, or a 10,000-foot view of the league. You got a couple of young quarterbacks. This last weekend, Drake May, Bo Nix, Caleb Williams, they all showed out pretty well and have people in those towns, thinking highly of them. Give us your rundown of Bo Nix, Drake May, Caleb Williams. Where do you see the chips falling with those three?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's any question that Bo Nix will be the starting quarterback week 1 for Denver. Yeah. I mean, I thought he was significantly better this game than he was in the first game. The first game, he had a tendency to break down a little quick, and that never surprises me, particularly with guys that have movement ability. I thought in this game he was more settled. I thought, the other thing too is, which I always notice when I watch tape, is the route concepts and how they help a quarterback. And we know Sean Payton is really, really good at that. And, and I'm not just talking about one-on-one matchups. I'm talking about situations where the route concept is 3 or 4 guys, and it really helps the quarterback so that he has somewhere to go with the ball within timing of the play. So, and Sean Payton does a really good job with that, and that makes Nix feel comfortable because he's not back there stuck. And, obviously they're not asking any of these quarterbacks to do a lot right now in terms of, who they're playing against or anything like that, but just basic stuff executed at a really good level. Caleb Williams, I mean, obviously we know what he can do as far as outside of structured plays. We know that. We've seen that. That to me, obviously the throw he made last week to Odunze running left, that's special stuff. Not everyone can do that. He can do that. As I said, we kind of know that. So the issue with Williams to me is kind of, he he sort of presents that question that is becoming more and more prevalent right now with the quarterbacks that the league are given. You know, what is the balance between pocket efficiency and high level second reaction ability? You know, plays outside of structure, because Williams has some work to do as far as playing from the pocket. But the question is, can he do it well enough that he could be a really good player this year? Because he is going to make those special kinds of plays that not everybody can make. So, you know, I don't know the answer to that. That's a hard question. I'm not sure coaches know the answer to that. Drake May hasn't played a ton, but I thought he did some good things in this last game. Executed some basic concepts really well. That's what you're looking for in the preseason. You want to make sure you execute basic concepts, because that's what they're asking them to do.
Greg, thanks as always for the time. We appreciate it. We'll catch up with you next week.
All right, appreciate it, guys. Thanks so much.